We don't always understand God's ways, and it's not for us to understand them. Hi guys, welcome back, and hi to any new viewers. Welcome to our new subscribers. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. If you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, check out my other videos, and you can also go check out my other social media pages. So today we're going to be talking about God's promises and us waiting for them to come to pass. In Genesis 15 verse 1 to 5 and Genesis 16 verse 1 to 2, I think we're all kind of familiar with Abraham's story about how God promised him a son, but it took some years before God fulfilled that promise. And in between him receiving the promise and the promise being fulfilled, there was a period in between filled with doubt and impatience on Sarah's side that led her to do something that she was not supposed to do. So now in this period, Sarah kind of started having doubts because she started getting older and older, and the older you get, you know how less likely it is for you to get pregnant, and if you do, there will be some complications. So she's like, I'm getting older, this is not gonna happen. God is not doing anything. So she went to Abraham and she's like, yo, listen, God's not giving you the son. I'm getting older and older. I don't think this is gonna happen. So here's my servant Hagar. Sleep with her, and this whatever son she bears, that will be your son. That will be the heir. Don't rush what God has planned for you and what God has promised you to the point where you go out and find alternative ways of getting it. What God has promised you will come to pass in its time. It will come to pass in God's timing and when it should happen. Just because God promised you something and you don't see it happening, you don't see it manifesting, doesn't mean that you should use your own strength, your own power, and your own understanding to get it. Zechariah 4 verse 6 tells us, not by might, not by power, but by your spirit. Proverbs 3 verse 5 tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Don't try to make it happen in your own way. Don't try to make it happen in your own timing. Don't try to make it happen in your own strength. It is going to bite you in the butt. It is going to come back at you, and you're not going to like the results. If you look at Sarah and Abraham, once Hagar was pregnant, there was conflict between her and Sarah. And Sarah then went back to Abraham and is like, do you see what you've done? This is your fault. You got her pregnant, and now there's conflict in my household. What am I supposed to do about that? And that time, Sarah is the one who told Abraham to sleep with Hagar, and now she's blaming him for listening to her. Whenever you try to get something in a time that you're not supposed to get it, it's gonna come back and bite you in the butt. Learn to trust God and not lean on your own understanding. Know that, yeah, sure, Sarah was kind of worried and doubtful because she was getting older and she felt like it's not possible and stuff like that. But that's the thing. God things are not logical. Don't try to logic what God does in our lives. Don't try to logic God. God doesn't work on our understanding. He doesn't work on our logic. He doesn't work on our biology and what. He works on his own. What God does is what God does. And that's something that he is also trying to teach us, to understand that we need to depend on him to give us what it is that we want, but we need to learn to trust him to give it to us first. God things cannot be rushed. You can't rush God things. From the promise to the fulfillment of the promise, there's a period in between that we need to go to, that is very necessary for us to go through. Within this period, I know we're going to go through some doubt, we're going to go through some frustration, we're going to go through some impatience and confusion at times, but it's very necessary because there's something that God wants to work on within us in this time before we can receive what it is that he has promised us. There are things that we need to build on. We need to develop our character, develop some skills for that promise. When you look in the Bible, you have David and Joseph. David and Joseph, they were both given dreams, or they were both God gave them a promise from a very young age, but it took some time before they actually got up and stood in the fulfillment of that promise. And in between them receiving the promise and the fulfillment of the promise, there was some time where they were not in that position. They were not in that position, but everything that they went through was teaching them and prepping them and training them for that position. They needed to go through this time of uncertainty, this time of kind of like blindness, before they can actually step up and live out that promise. So don't rush what God has for you. Don't rush. If God tells you to wait, wait. And if you don't know what it is that you're supposed to be working on, just learn to sit in His presence, talk to Him, and ask Him what it is that He needs you to work on in this time. We don't always understand God's ways, and it's not for us to understand them. If you try to understand why God works the way that He does, you're gonna go crazy. Because God things cannot be logicked. I know that's not a word, but God things cannot be logicked. You cannot logic God. He works how He works. He works how He works. But know that everything that He does for you, He does it because He loves you. He doesn't want you to get hurt once you receive that promise. But as I understand that every time that you try to make it happen on your own, every time you try to make it happen on your time, it delays the promise. It sets you back. So please trust God. Trust God and let Him do what it is that He needs to do. If He's saying wait for that job, wait for that relationship, wait for school, wait for this and this, for that business, wait for that ministry, He knows what He's doing. Once He says wait, understand that He needs you to work on something in that time. And once He gives you that promise, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen immediately. It's not going to happen immediately. Ask Abraham, ask Jacob, ask Joseph, ask David, and many other people in the Bible. Just because God says, this is what I have for you, doesn't mean it's going to be fulfilled immediately. He needs to teach you something. He needs to teach you to depend on Him before He can give it to you. Because He knows that once He gives it to you now, you're going to forget about Him. You're not going to put Him first. You're not going to do what it is that He has called you for. You're just going to start doing your own thing because I'm this big guy now. So don't rush what God has for you. Trust in His timing. Trust in His ways. And always remember that He's not making you wait for nothing. This is very necessary. This is very important time for you. A waiting period is so important. It is so important. It's very necessary. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I pray that you guys learned to wait for God's promises. I pray that you let Him do what it is that He needs to do in your life. Trust in Him and don't doubt what He says. What you see is impossible, to God it is impossible. To God it is possible. Trust in God, let Him do what it is that He needs to do. Thank you again. Don't forget, subscribe, check out my other social media pages. If you have any questions, queries, topic ideas, whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, do not hesitate to message me on any of my social media platforms. You can email me or you can comment down below. See you guys next time.